United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. City Clerk, may we please have the roll call?
Commissioner Fung,
Present.
Commissioner Linskog,
Present.
Commissioner Rao,
Here.
Vice Chair Scharf,
Here.
Chair Kasolshran,
Present.
all present.
Thank you very much. So we'll move on to the next item, which is the approval of the minutes from the March 9th Special Planning Commission. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
Great.
The motion carries with Commissioner Fung abstaining.
Excellent. So we'll move on. Do we have any postponements? I think we do not. So we'll move on to oral communications. City Clerk, how many public comments do we have?
We have one speaker in person and no hands raised on Zoom. Our first speaker is Jennifer Griffin. Welcome, Jennifer.
Good evening, Planning Commission. Good to see you all. I just wanted to bring up an item that I had brought up at the last City Council meeting. I don't really know who would address this, but it affects the safety of all of us. I have to drive to Santa Cruz 2 days a week to help my elderly mother. Don't tell her I said that. And she lives in Aptos. And that involves me driving over Highway 17. And you know what an adventure 17 is. But I will tell you that in the last probably 4 months, there's a tremendous safety factor that is evolving. This is north out of Scotts Valley, right before the summit. There is a new overcrossing for mountain lions and other animals, which is great because it gets them off the roadway. But we have a problem with the safety of the median. There have been 4 to 5 deaths at that area just out of Scotts Valley in the last, probably since January, December. What is happening is that people going north or southbound hit the median. Okay, that's fine. It keeps them from going into oncoming traffic, which was an automatic fatality years ago. But they are ricocheting off the median, shooting across the 2 lanes of road and either hitting a tree, going down the hill, or coming back and hitting the median, and the whole vehicle goes over the median and lands into oncoming traffic. My husband and I were stuck there about probably in January, where there was for an hour, and we knew on the radio that there was a motorcycle fatality 1 mile south of us. You can imagine at that location. And you can imagine the despair by the time we got up there. And then just recently, every time I go over, there has been a fatality there. I don't know exactly what has happened. They probably need to have a 2-story median at the location. I've been going over there since I was a toddler. My grandparents lived in Scotts Valley. My cousins, aunt, etc., lived over there. So I've been on that road for my whole life. But there's something strange going on. Now, about 4 years ago, we were told that there was supposed to be an overpass put in right outside north of Scotts Valley. Why has that not materialized? We have funding for animals crossing in Los Gatos and up at the summit, but we have no safety. We need to bring that in. I don't know who's responsible, but let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. We have no speakers in person and no hands raised on Zoom, Chair.
Great, thank you very much. So we will move on to the next portion of the meeting for public hearings. And the agenda item is to consider a use permit, tentative map, architectural and site approval, and tree removal permit for a 122-unit residential development at the Stevens Creek Office Center. Hearing is now open. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and good evening, members of the
Point
Commission.
of order, Chair. Should we do ex parte disclosures?
Yes, absolutely. Apologies. Let us do ex parte disclosures. Commissioner Fung, would you like to start?
Yes, in the recent days, I haven't met with the development team, but I did meet with them some months ago. Had an overview of the site. That actually must have been 5 or 6 months ago, I think.
I have met with the applicant and had a call with them as well. And I also heard from the party that wrote in, which is the retail neighbor of the applicant. I have not spoken to any residents around the area.
I have met with the developer a few times as well.
I met with them many months ago, like Commissioner Fung, but not recently.
Same here. I met with them a few months ago, not recently.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you and good evening. Just wanted to do a brief introduction. I believe several of you had a chance to meet. Shelby Maples will be the project planner on this. She's a senior planner, started with the city in December, so this is her first time here at the Planning Commission tonight. She will be leading the presentation this evening, and then I believe after that, the applicant has a presentation as well focused on their project. So with that, I will turn things over to Shelby.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair and Planning Commission. My name is Shelby Maples, planning staff, and I have a presentation for you on a housing development project. The project is located on 4 parcels along Stevens Creek, west of Sageway. It's in the heart of the city specific plan crossroads sub-area. To the east of the site is a Sageway Station Retail and Target, as well as a daycare. There's a Whole Foods and Abundant Life Church to the west, and then residential uses and the YMCA to the north. The zoning designation of the site at the time of the preliminary application was Planned Development Commercial and Residential, or PCG Res, which is applicable to the proposed project, and it has a maximum density of 25 dwelling units to the acre. The project proposes a housing development with 66 for-sale single-family homes, 56 for-sale townhomes for a total of 122 units, as well as the removal of 249 trees. The project entitlements include a use permit, architectural site approval, tentative map, and tree removal entitlements. For a little bit of background on the project, the site is currently occupied by the Stevens Creek Office Center, as well as Voyager Coffee and Panera. As far as applications, the SB 330 preliminary application was submitted on April 1st of 2024, with the formal application following in September. For some additional context, the housing element was adopted in May of 2024, where one of the project parcels was identified as priority housing site number 9. The SB 330 application was submitted prior to housing element adoption in May of 2024, which locked in the existing PCG res zoning and the lower densities that are proposed by the project. As we've seen with some other applications brought before the city, there are several state laws which are applicable to the project, starting with the Housing Accountability Act, which does prohibit cities from disproving or adding conditions that would render a project infeasible or reduce density except in specific circumstances. Then there's SB 330, or the Housing Crisis Act, which streamlines permit processing and locks in the fees and development standards that were in effect at the time of that preliminary application. Then there's density bonus law, which does allow the project to have additional units, though that's not utilized in this case. But it also entitles them to waivers and concessions based on the amount and type of affordable development provided. The project requests 12 waivers and 1 concession to support the project as proposed. Then finally, there is no net loss. The city is required to maintain an inventory of sites by income category consistent with RENA. This site will not provide the number of units anticipated in the housing element, but since the project came in before the housing element, it meets the vested designation. Here's an overview of the project development standards. In the next several slides, we'll go over the development standards for which the project requests waivers, primarily to heart of the city setbacks. So as I mentioned, 122 units in total, with 66 single-family homes, 56 townhomes, including all 24 proposed below-market rate units. The buildings are 3 stories, so 33 units do have access to rooftop decks, and the units range in size from 2,272 square feet to 3,773 square feet. The project requires a use permit due to the vestate zoning. Additionally, with the tree removal permit, a total of 249 trees will be removed, with 151 planned to be replaced on site, as with the remainder being compensated by an in lieu fee. And there's also a vesting tentative map for condominium purposes associated with the development. So here's the site plan showing the layout of the project. As you can see, there are the townhome buildings shown here in the orange, green, and yellow that are oriented towards Stevens Creek, with the single-family homes started towards the center of the site and back towards Alves. The BMR units are highlighted here with the red dots. They're all located in the townhome portion of the project. The units include garages. There are a total of 272 parking spaces throughout the project, including 28 guest parking spaces. Each unit includes private open space, and also there's a common open space green, which includes the public art. So here is a rendering of the project from Stevens Creek. The project is largely consistent with the applicable objective standards, though, as we've discussed, it is requesting density bonus waivers and a concession. Just a reminder that concessions and waivers can only be denied under very specific circumstances, including significant negative impacts to health and safety. We will summarize the 12 density bonus waivers in the following slides, though primarily we're looking at the height limitation for the heart of the city, the front, side, and rear setbacks, the side and rear upper deck setbacks, eaves setbacks, lot coverage, lot width, and building forms, and then parking size and setbacks. So here is an image that shows the 35 units that would be impacted if the heart of the city height limit of 45 feet was in place. The tallest of these units is highlighted here with unit building 17. It's noted that the height of the building is approximately 50 feet, while the actual structure itself is about 45.5 feet tall. The setback is measured from the sidewalk, which does affect the overall height. Here are the setbacks for the front, side deck, rear, and rear deck and eaves. They're showing here in the table the most significantly reduced setback. Similarly, here, there are additional waivers for lot coverage, lot width, and building forms. Building form speaks to the massing of the buildings adjacent to residential, which would ordinarily require the building to be stepped back based on the height. There are also 2 additional waivers that have to do with parking, including the construction of parking within the setback adjacent to residential. So those are the garages for buildings 1, 2, 3, and 17. Then there's also the parking stall size. The garage would typically be 20 by 20. Here, we're looking at an 18.5 by 20 with 28 tandem garages. The project does propose public art. This would be located in the central green of the project, and ultimately this would be reviewed and approved by the Arts and Culture Commission. Due to the limitations on the site, the project proposes the payment of an in lieu fee for parkland dedication, and with this fee, it is consistent with Quimby Act requirements. The proposed project will also include 20% moderate below market rate, or BMR units. This would be a total of 24.4 BMR units, so there's 12 moderate and 12 median, with an in lieu fee paid for the fractional unit. The concession for the project is proposed for the units to be slightly smaller in unit type, so there's 3 bedrooms in the BMR units, whereas 3 or 4 bedrooms in the units throughout the rest of the site. And then the BMR units are only located in the townhomes. The project relies on the AB 130 exemption. There is a memorandum included with the staff report packet. As part of that, they reviewed the Phase 1 environmental site assessment, and it was determined that the project meets the requirements for the statutory exemption. For noticing and public comments, the noticing includes site signage, illegal advertisement, and then the mailed notices to 500 feet. Prior to staff report publication, there was only one letter that referenced the project. It was a comment about loss of retail in the city and did mention the project but did not address it directly. There were several emails that were received today and in one email yesterday. Several of the emails were regarding the loss of retail, and there were also multiple letters of support in the project. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt the draft resolutions, recommending that the City Council take the actions listed here on the slide and in your staff report. Thank you, and I'm available for questions. And PlaceWorks is also available to answer questions regarding the CEQA. So, thank you very much.
Thank you for the presentation and a belated welcome to Shelby. I'll now bring it back to the commission for any questions of staff before we move to the applicant presentation.
I did not see staff call out the letter from the neighboring retail tenant. Did I miss that on your slide? If you might go back to that slide.
It wasn't called out directly on the slide because it was received very late in the day today.
So how should we think about the letter from the retail neighbor that is asking to continue the item?
Commissioner, we received the letter very, very, very late, and I think it's appropriate to just proceed under the circumstance that we haven't had time to evaluate the merits of the letter and encourage the letter writer to contact the City Council when the item goes before them.
Okay. And can staff comment on, in these matters, typically, if you have an applicant that is co-located with another commercial property owner, what is the protocol? Is the onus on the applicant to contact the neighboring property? Is the onus on the neighboring property to read the notices and engage, or is the onus on staff to engage both parties?
So, as proposed, the project does not modify the easement that's referred to in the letter. So, I have been told that the applicant has reached out to the property owner, but as the easement's not being modified with the project, it hasn't been an issue.
But just in terms of the engagement model, is the city expected to engage adjacent neighbors, or?
On issues like this, where they're between two properties, the city would typically not be involved with an agreement where I believe there's a third party where the city had oversight when these were both commercial properties to ensure that there was access. Where we're now finding ourselves is it's an opposite situation because you're having a residential property develop where it's essentially going to be shut off from that commercial property. And several of the issues, if not all, that are cited in there are really not going to be applicable anymore because this is essentially a standalone project. But it's not impeding the access to the commercial site to the east.
And last question from me. So the AB 130, is that retroactive given the application was received before AB 130 was passed, I believe?
Yes, it is. The application was filed before AB 130 went into effect on June 30 of last year, and projects that had already been submitted prior to that, if they were eligible, could take advantage of AB 130. So that's the course this project had taken. There's a long-standing existing categorical exemption for infill projects that was typically used. However, because this site's close to 7 acres, it wouldn't have been eligible for that. It's capped at 5. AB 130 raised that up to 20 acres. So this project meets all of the criteria of AB 130.
Thank you.
Any other questions from Commission? Commissioner Linskog?
I have a question about the retail. Is there any effort being made to relocate the retail or to encourage, give them incentives or any kind of help to relocate elsewhere in the city?
I did not talk recently with our economic development group, but generally they're well aware of this project and are generally working with tenants where there's potential displacement to try to keep them within the city and look at available options for relocation. I don't know the specific status of those conversations, though.
Can we find out?
We certainly can, and at the city council meeting, we could include that in the staff presentation on efforts to assist with relocation.
That would be great. Thank you.
Any other questions, Vice Chair? I just had one clarifying question. So I understand that 20807 is the housing element site, and then 20813, 23, and 883 are not. Are those going to be counted later from arena standpoint?
Happily, yes. All of these will count. So the housing element site's not being developed at the density we expected. I think the capacity in the housing element was 51 units for that property, but the total number of units is, 71 beyond that, and we're not having a contribution to no net loss in the moderate income category, though we do in the low.
Great, thank you. All right, if we have no further questions, then, oh, sorry, it looks like we do.
Actually, as a follow-up to that, I'm curious, because the other because the other parcels were not part of the housing element, is there any effect because there are units being built there that offsets the loss on the site that had been designated?
What I'm expecting we will be doing in the coming months is taking account of projects like this that were not identified in the housing element, but are either in the pipeline or going to hearing. And the no net loss will involve amending the housing element and factoring those in. So we would get credit in the annual reporting anyway, because we've approved these, but the housing element should reflect that while we have a no net loss situation, we've also gotten a number of projects on non-housing element sites that will help us for total units.
Yeah, Commissioner Rao?
Yeah, so how is staff interpreting the use of objective design standards or the lack thereof? Do we assume the city has no objective design standards, or do we view specific standards within the general plan and other plans to see which ones are actually quantified and therefore enforceable?
Yes, we do look at that. Of course, with density bonus projects, we're always dealing with even the objective standards can be waived.
Understood, but specific quantifiable standards would still need explicit density bonus waivers being requested.
Yes, and anything that is quantifiable and applicable to the project, yes.
Okay.
Things like building height, setbacks.
So we are not assuming that the absence of a separate objective design standard means we cannot enforce anything that is in the general plan. If it is quantified, we will still be looking to enforce.
Yes, we still look to that. It's just that you should always keep in mind with density bonus, they can be waived, even the objective standards.
Understood. The question is the applicant seeking explicit waiver on each of those, and are we looking at that? Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, seeing as there are no further questions, we will move to the applicant presentation.
All right. You can pull the presentation.
It is up on my screen, so it's ready for.
Can they see it on their screens?
Okay.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. Good evening, Chair Casultron, Vice Chair Scharf, and commissioners, and members of the public. I'm Kevin Choi with Harvest Properties. I'd like to thank staff for their presentation and their guidance through this entitlement process. They have been incredibly helpful throughout all of it. We are excited to present and introduce the canopies. There was no time like today to name the project, and the canopies, as staff has mentioned, is located on Stevens Creek Boulevard. Next. Tonight, I'll briefly walk you through our project team, the site location, our community engagement process, and the core benefits this housing project brings Cupertino. Then I'll hand it over to our architect to dive into the design, landscaping, and architecture. Before we jump in, I just want to quickly introduce our project team. Again, my name is Kevin Choi, representing ownership. With me tonight is the property owner, Blair Volkman, whose family has been stewards of the site for over 40 plus years. We also have our lead design and engineering partners, David Burton from KTGY Architecture, Eric Gellerman from Gates Studio, Terry Reeves from CB&G. Next. Looking at the project location, the 6.8 acre site is currently improved with older office and retail buildings. I want to explicitly clarify, especially in response to some public comments that we have received, that our project footprint does not include the daycare facility at the corner of Alves and Sage, nor does it include the newly constructed retail shops fronting Sage Way and the associated driveway. As you'll hear later, our project includes for sale residential units, and these future homeowners will have ample access to schools and retail amenities, including Garden Gate Elementary, Sam Lawson Middle School, Whole Foods, Target, and a variety of other retail tenants in Cupertino. Getting to the proposed site plan to you today has been a comprehensive journey. Since submitting our initial SB 330 application in April of 2024, we have had significant community engagement throughout 2024 and 2025. We listened closely to feedback, which led our team to spend several months through March and July of 2025 deeply investigating a site design alternative that preserved the existing retail on site. Unfortunately, due to a determination that the project would have to resubmit and lose its SB 330 vesting, that option ultimately proved infeasible. That brings us to what we have heard from the community. While we couldn't preserve the retail buildings, ownership is committed to working with Panera and Voyager Coffee to assist them in finding a new home in Cupertino. We've also heard how much the community values the urban forest. We worked closely with city staff and are proudly preserving 6 existing pear trees along Stevens Creek Boulevard frontage, and we'll be planting an additional 4 more. Regarding the site's interior, the current high volume of trees is solely due to severe overplanting in areas that are too small to support mature growth. Rather than repeat past mistakes, we are planting 65 new, large canopy trees in right-sized courtyards to ensure a sustainable, healthy canopy for the long term. I want to highlight the unique opportunity that we have here. For sale homes have been severely underproduced in this region over the last decade, with development heavily skewed towards rentals. This project helps meet that missing supply for home ownership, providing a place for families to put down roots and for empty nesters to downsize. This opportunity exists because the 40-plus-year-old campus is at the end of its useful life. And Apple, who occupies 65% of the site, has notified us that they are vacating. And the demand for office like this has fundamentally changed. To deliver this much-needed housing, we are utilizing state density bonus law while still maintaining a relatively low-density development in comparison to other projects. To make our affordable housing units physically and financially feasible, we are requesting a concession and multiple waivers. These waivers, which include deviations for height, lot coverage, setbacks, and parking dimensions that staff has mentioned, are not arbitrary. They are essential mechanical tools that allow us to provide the level of housing and affordability today. Finally, before I turn it over to David, I want to emphasize the benefits of this project. By utilizing these state density bonus law provisions, we are providing 24 below market rate homes, 20% of the total units, to median and moderate income households. Additionally, we're providing 122 homes. That's more than the 51 that was noted in the housing element, as you all have already noticed. And this will help with the low net loss issue that you have. Beyond housing, this project is a tremendous asset to the city. It is entirely consistent with the site's general plan and zoning designations when submitted. Environmentally, our peer-reviewed traffic study demonstrates a 40% net decrease in vehicle trips compared to the existing commercial uses. And last but not least, economically, the project generates $10 million in impact fees and provides an estimated $160,000 of net revenue to the city's general fund. Thank you for your time and consideration. I'll now hand the presentation over to David Burton from KTGY Architects.
Thanks, Kevin. And good evening to all of you commissioners. Definitely excited to be before you this evening to present what we think will be a great addition to the neighborhood. As Kevin mentioned, my name's David Burton. I'm an associate principal with K2GY. I'll keep my presentation short, focusing on giving you some small insights into our thinking that went into developing the designs. Our main goals with this design were, one, to create a plan that responds to the context, larger scale buildings facing Stevens Creek Boulevard, transitioning to a more fine-grained scale as you move through the site to Alves Drive. Number two was to help fulfill the vision of the city's heart of the city specific plan. And three is to maximize housing opportunities in a location that's got good access to shopping, schools, transit, and bike infrastructure, as Kevin talked about. The project includes two types of housing: three-story townhouses that are oriented towards Stevens Creek Boulevard, three-story single-family homes towards the interior and facing Alves Drive. Access to the site is provided from both of these streets, and we've then meandered that circulation through the site to encourage slower speeds, more conducive to a pedestrian-friendly neighborhood. All homes have front doors facing Stevens Creek, Alves Drive, or to the landscape courtyards that we've created. The courtyards connect to the central circulation spine and provide a strong continuous pedestrian connection from homes out to the larger neighborhood. The 56 townhomes are a mix of 3 and 4 bedroom units that provide a diversity of plans that can appeal to a wide variety of households and lifestyles. And the 66 single family homes have 2 primary unit types, a couple of different little variations. And the homes will have private side yards and second floor decks that connect with the main living spaces. And as Kevin, I think, pointed out, that a number of the homes also feature roof decks. Next slide, please. As I mentioned a minute ago, all homes have front doors that either face one of the 2 public streets or face onto landscape courtyards. We worked very closely with Gate Studios, the landscape architects, to design streetscapes and courtyards that are human-scaled, lush, provide gathering spaces for friends and neighbors, and create a network of walkways that connect homes to the landscape and to the larger neighborhood. The highlight of the neighborhood and its heart is a large 32,000 square foot courtyard that will feature a substantial tree canopy, picnic areas, an outdoor workstation, play opportunities for children, and public art. This courtyard is situated well away from both Stevens Creek Boulevard and Alves Drive to be a quiet, peaceful space for residents away from car traffic, but that it's also connected by the strong central circulation spine for easy visible access. Our other courtyards, which feed off the central circulation spine, include benches, seat walls, playful seating stones, and gathering areas for quiet outdoor time and conversation with neighbors. Next. Oh, there we go. The townhomes are designed in 2 distinct styles and have plain breaks, varied roof heights, changes in materials, and changes in color to be compliant with the design guidelines in the heart of the city specific plan. This view shows our Stevens Creek frontage that we, for lack of a better term, call our modern French style. Lighter colors are used at street-facing bays to highlight individual units. Lower 1- and 2-story forms with standing seam metal roofs give prominence and a more pedestrian-friendly scale to the front doors of all the homes. Recessed windows, bay windows, and balconies add depth and detail to the elevations. And as Kevin pointed out, at the planting strip along the street, we're preserving 6 existing street trees and infilling with matching trees. This existing landscape, paired with our more traditional architecture, we feel will help give these buildings a more timeless quality. Next. The single-family homes are designed in 3 styles that are distinct, but also share common compositional elements that allow them to come together as a cohesive neighborhood. This view of our Alves Drive street frontage shows an example of each of the styles. The Spanish Revival style features low-pitched roofs, arched entries, and recessed windows typical of the style. The modern French utilizes steeper gabled roofs and fiber cement panel accents. And the Craftsman style features deep eaves, brackets, corbels, and shingle accents, typical of the style. Each home has a prominent front porch and a second floor deck that allows the main living spaces to have engagement with the life of the street. The front elevations of the homes have significant plane changes, varied roof lines, bay windows, and changes in material and colors that give the homes great visual interest and a more human scale. We believe that the style and play of massing and details will allow these houses to blend comfortably with the existing neighborhood. Next. One before this. Huh. Let me keep going back.
Is there?
There was one of the courtyard somewhere in there. There it is. And this is a view of our central open space. At this location, our two housing typologies come together, with the space being bounded by both townhomes and single-family homes. The whole of the community literally knits together in this space. You can also see we've made the space large enough for it to be a vibrant space that contains multiple spaces and uses. Space for children to play, neighbors to chat, or to have a little quiet time for oneself. And there we go. With that, I'll conclude my portion of our presentation. Thanks for the opportunity to present the project to you this evening. Our team, both the ownership and the consultants, are here and available to answer questions you might have. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much to Kevin and David, and we'll bring it back to the commission for questions. Vice Chair?
How far are the front doors of the units facing Stevens Creek from the actual road? Because I noticed Stevens Creek is between 6 and 7 lane divided highway there. So I just wonder how many feet those are from the street.
It's a great question. There's a required, I think it's 35-foot setback along that frontage, and we're complying with that setback. So they're set back a good ways, and there's a big landscape buffer in between the street and the buildings.
Okay, thank you.
34? Oh, 1 foot less.
Thank you. Any other questions? And the applicant may want to remain at the podium, as we may have more questions for you.
So I have a question about the trees. I hear what you're saying about some of the trees are pretty close together, but there's also a lot of really nice mature pine trees and big, beautiful trees there, which I'm really not happy about losing. What size trees are you going to be putting back in? Are you making an effort to put bigger trees in, or are these 24-inch pots?
The exact size of the particular tree, 24-inch box is a pretty standard size for new trees going in as far as the species that go in, but given the type of project, we have trees that are kind of small to medium size and mature canopy, and then the areas where we do have room. I think we do have at least one oak species and a couple other species that would be large shade trees at maturity.
Where are those going?
The central courtyard, the linear park area, that's where we have the most space for the larger canopy. There's a couple other pockets where
How wide is the central courtyard?
50 feet, give or take.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Commissioner Rao?
Yeah, question to staff. Is now the time to invite the retail neighbor if they're available to speak? Or would we have to wait for oral comments? I don't know if they're available though. Do we see maybe a question for staff first? Can someone confirm if they are on the call, and if they are they allowed to speak now?
Looks like it's going to me. I don't know if they're here because I haven't seen them. I think if you wanted to allow them to speak either at this time or under oral communications, either would be fine.
Are staff on Zoom and able to check Zoom attendees?
Well, excuse me, I think I'm going to recommend to have them speak their oral comment, just public comment, just like, all the other parties who have interest in the party in this project will be able to do so. There may be other neighbors who have comments, and I think we should provide them the courtesy to have just one set of a process for them to follow. It might be more straightforward that way.
Okay. Follow-up question. So what is the Mullen density for this project, and does the project qualify?
Mullen density throughout Cupertino is 30. So for AB 130, you have to be half the Mullen density of 15 units per acre. So they are over that.
And what is the basis for that 30? Can you explain?
Mullen density varies throughout the state, and it's based on if you're in an urbanized area, your density is generally 30. I know there can be variations on this. And as far as AB 130, the significance that's tied to that is in order to qualify, you have to be at least 50% of the Mullen density. So it's aimed at multifamily projects. Lower density projects would not be able to take advantage of AB 130 because they typically don't meet the half of the Mullen density.
Mm-hmm. And on the density bonus waivers and incentives, procedurally, how would staff make a determination to write up that there is a specific adverse impact? For example, the loss of retail, maybe. I'll just pick on one. Is there a way that staff would make a determination to decide to write up a specific adverse impact on the health of the public for having lost Voyager? I'll just take that as an example.
So the significant and adverse impacts are towards maintaining a historic structure or public health and safety. I don't know that the loss of retail would meet any of those criteria.
CEQA has never contemplated economic impacts or even social impacts. It was purely focused on physical impacts to the environment. That are
Understood,
foreseeable.
but specifically I'm asking about public health in the context of loss of something as dearly loved as Voyager, for example.
That would be an interesting nexus to make. I've never seen anything on that, that the loss of retail is actually an impact to public health. I think loss of retail is a real impact to cities, but not necessarily an environmental one.
But is there a process by which commission may direct staff to look into the possibility of such a potential written investigation? I assume with AB 130 you have no lead time to follow such direction?
Under AB 130 and this project in particular, we are pretty much at the limit, which is why we're actually scheduling a shorter than usual hearing time before the City Council on April 7th.
And so the assumption here is that council or commissions shall not have the ability to direct staff on this matter. This would be staff's discretion to sort of independently assess in their professional opinion if a health or safety issue is warranted, and therefore you would write something up. Is that fair?
With all CEQA clearances, if there was a genuine health and safety issue, that's something we would be looked at. And if one existed, you wouldn't be using an exemption typically. You'd be doing a higher level CEQA document for something where there was a definite health and safety issue.
And is the burden of proof solely on the city for this aspect, or is there also any burden of proof on the applicant to prove that they actually needed this?
I believe it's on the city. It's not on the applicant.
Is the applicant required to show that this is required to make the project feasible financially, or that it produces cost savings, or?
I think in a general sense, and now I think we've kind of segued from maybe 130 to density bonus. Mm-hmm. The burden lies with the city if you're challenging to be able to make specific findings that if you're going after economic feasibility, to be able to point out that the waiver or concession being asked for is not necessary. And the burden is with the city.
Understood. But along with the request for the waivers and incentives, are they required to provide written evidence of why, without that waiver or incentive, the project would be infeasible?
I guess to what degree of specificity? The applicants do state why they need a certain waiver and how it would impact their project. I think such as some of the diagrams presented show, loss of units, which is the typical, it would be something physically altering the project. Cities are not in a position to kind of redesign a project and say, our design actually meets your goals. You're looking at the project as designed. Density bonus puts that in the applicant's court to propose their project. And we can't sort of presuppose that an equivalent design would meet those same standards.
Is there a particular item out of the waiver list that we might call out, for example, the 50 feet height. Would we, if the applicant asked for 100 feet height, would we allow that?
They're only asking for 50 tonight.
I know, but, they might come back with the next project with 100. Would we allow that?
It would depend on the circumstances. Depend on what the zoning is, depend on the circumstances, depend on the nature of the project.
So there is no control the city has on, because we, on a prior project, were debating 30 feet versus 40 feet, and here we are at 50 feet. For purpose of comparison, what is the height on the Westport Senior Living? I think that is the tallest we have. 70 feet?
72, something like that. It was just over 70. For this project, though, the heart of the city allowed up to 45. So some of the buildings are under that. A few are over. The tallest is 5 feet over. So
And that height limit assumes commercial zoning or?
mixed
or
use.
Mixed use, okay. Okay, I'll pause here. No further questions.
I did have some questions for the applicant. First, I noticed in the plan set that the townhomes are HOA, but the single-family homes are not HOA. So I was curious, did I read that correctly? Or is everything under the HOA? Okay, all right, then we'll move on. I was also curious, could you confirm the number of guest parking spots?
I believe that number is 28.
Would you be able to show that on the diagram? Because I was counting fewer than 28, but I'm wondering if maybe they were not all on the diagram, or I was just missing some.
The easiest way to do that would be to pull up the architecture plans. How easy is that for you? A0, no. Then on
I don't have the individual sheets available. I can only bring up the site plan in your presentation.
This will work. Actually, if you can go, it's even easier. If you go to slide 8, the project introduction opportunity slide. So you can see here the dark rectangles that follow the streets. Those are a graphical representation of the stalls there. There are a couple other stalls that are head in that are by the public park. There's where the public art is. There's 2 there, and then there's 1 tucked away next to townhome 3, which is
Okay,
the top
thank
right.
you. I had missed the ones next to the public art, so that's where the 3 came from. Thank you. And then I also wanted to confirm on L10, there is a discussion, or there's a page around landscaping around the fire ladder pads, since this project is somewhat reliant on the fire ladders.
Mm-hmm.
So would there be empty areas where there's no landscaping to allow for those?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So per code, the fire ladder pad would be devoid of landscaping, and there would be a pathway from the sidewalk to that. That is also.
Okay, thank you. Would you be able to speak to the retail support specifically that you're providing to the Panera and Voyager? I think there's a lot of community interest in that.
Will you repeat the question?
Oh, yes. Would you be able to speak in more detail about the support that you're providing to the Panera and Voyager to help them relocate somewhere within Cupertino?
Sure. Honestly, the conversation with Panera hasn't even occurred yet. With the ownership, we've been on percentage rent since COVID, and they had originally indicated that they weren't able to pay full rent at the property. So we're planning to have that conversation once we know that this is ultimately approved. With Voyager, we reached out and we have connected with them. When we first signed this lease, it was contemplated that we might redevelop this property at some point, just knowing the age of the property. And so in the lease, there is actually termination language if a redevelopment would occur, and we would be paying the unamortized costs associated with their tenant improvements. With that being said, knowing how important Voyager is to the community, we haven't settled on a number or anything, but we've offered to assist them in additional relocation costs. And we were talking outside earlier, and I said, ahead of going to City Council, happy to be explicit about what that is, so that we've got a definitive agreement stating that.
Great, thank you. And to confirm, the relocation costs would go towards a new location in Cupertino, hypothetically?
That is up to Voyager, but yes, they would go towards the build out of a new location.
Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you. And then my final question, then I'll turn it back to the commission, was just, I did notice that the one unit number 1 actually, that's adjacent to a single-family home, has no landscaping on it, or not landscaping, but there's no like tree or privacy hedge blocking unit 1 from the single-family residential, and I was wondering if there's a way to include a little bit more landscaping.
If I may, they are retaining 2 existing trees.
2 trees, okay.
Yes, in that northwest corner.
Right, but there's nothing between the unit, the
Gotcha.
building, yes.
And I think that's where we did include a new privacy hedge that is going to be in between right next to the fence, between the fence and our unit.
Okay, and how tall would that hedge be? Would it be above the fence at all? Or?
I think that would be the goal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Vice Chair?
So since one of the waivers is to underpark the project, I'm wondering, are the guest spaces going to be strictly limited to guests only? So residents can't use them for extra vehicles?
So that would be under the choice of the HOA as to how they want to use it, but the intent is that those are 28 stalls that are to be used for guests.
Okay, and then this is to staff more. Because of the underparking, what would be required to have permit parking on Alves Drive and the time-limited parking on Sayich Way to prevent those streets from being used as parking lots for this project?
Yeah, to answer that, I'd have to talk to our transportation division about what would be involved getting the permit parking along those streets. First, it would be involved talking to the people who live along those streets and their interest in the permit parking. But that would be a question for our transportation division.
Right, yeah, I guess that's for Alves. I'm thinking of, Sayich, where some of that street parking is needed for retail. I would hate to see that just being used for overflow parking from this project. But it's also the transportation division that would look at that.
On-street parking that would all be through Public Works and Transportation.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the commission?
Through the chair.
Yes.
So there is a table about tree removal and trees required. Usually that table also includes trees proposed or trees that will be provided. Is that right? I don't see that column. I'm trying to understand the purpose of this table. It says number of trees proposed for removal, replacement trees required, but it's missing the key data on how many replacement trees are proposed.
I believe the text says 151.
Yes, right under the
Understood,
table.
but is there a reason the table doesn't show that? So how many trees? I guess we have 134 trees that need to be replaced that are 12 inches or less, and then 74 that are 24-inch, and 37 that are 36-inch. What is the equivalent for each of those that are actually are proposed?
So because of the limitations of the site, they are only proposing the 151. That's going to be split up between those sizes, and then the remainders with the payment of an in lieu fee. So it just was determined not to be physically possible to do a one-for-one replacement planting.
And what measures does staff have to try and increase or minimize the amount of loss of trees, if anything? Is this a waiver that they choose to just pay the fee and we have to accept it, or do we have any discretion to deny accepting that fee and require some larger number of trees?
I think we like to save on-site trees, but where you're having a complete redevelopment of a site, that's where you're going to lose trees unless there's some workaround where you actually have a tree, say, in a path of a drive aisle or an area that's remaining open space. But generally, this is typical where you have a commercial center that has a lot of surface parking, and you're now having a more dense project go in. There's just fewer spaces to accommodate the trees, or I think even larger trees. At maturity, you have limited areas where you can plant those.
And the 18 off-site trees, are we preserving? I'm not sure I understand this. So how many of these off-site trees are being preserved? And the applicant can feel free to answer.
They're preserving the 12, I believe, on the adjacent properties, and then 6 along the street.
So all 18 offsite trees will be preserved?
Yes.
And to the applicant, is there anything you might consider in terms of the 251 trees that are on site, or the trees that could have been saved, that may be alternatives? I don't know if you have your landscape architect here who can speak to this.
Can you repeat the question?
Does the landscape architect have any potential options to save any of these trees that we're losing?
Given the current development, not really. There's some trees that are maybe on the borderline. It's possible a tree could be saved. But as with the development, excavation for foundations, things like that, tree may or may not survive, or it may be in declining health and, die 5-10 years down the road. So there's additional complications with that where potentially, you might be able to, but the long-term health of the tree would likely be heavily impacted given the density of the site.
And so of those potential ones that you might be able to, are the replacement trees that we might consider in their place, or are we entirely losing the tree there? Only for the potential ones.
This particular example was mostly just the off-site trees, and there was a handful of trees on both Alves and Stevens Creek that we were able to save because the development was sufficiently far away where we're very confident that the tree would survive and still be fine, into the future.
Right, but of the on-site trees, are there any trees that we might, at least from a location perspective, be able to accommodate additional trees?
I would say no.
Kevin, would you have anything to add?
No, I would defer to our architect on this.
Okay.
And I would just say, it comes down to...
If you might speak into the mic, please.
At the end of the day, it comes down to housing density and whether more houses are worth, the trees. And so we had that conversation, and there was, conversation about trying to push housing density. And in order to save any of the on-site trees, you would have to eliminate housing.
And maybe a question for staff and the applicant. Is there a way to increase the number of off-site trees on Stevens Creek and Alves? I know we're talking about preserving what exists, but can we add more trees off-site? I don't know who can take that question. Maybe the applicant might.
Mm-hmm. We are adding additional trees on Stevens Creek Boulevard. So there's 6 that we're preserving, and then there's 4 additional ones that are coming on Stevens Creek Boulevard that we are adding.
And is that a staff recommendation? Is that the applicant's recommendation? Is there room for more trees off-site?
I'll defer to...
It generally comes from Public Works, who reviews the application and handles the street trees. We would try to retain what we can and try to add where it's appropriate. So that's a condition from Public Works review.
Could we condition something to recommend the exploration of additional off-site trees?
I think that could be part of your recommendation if you want to include that along this portion of Stevens Creek. Since you have 249 trees total, you have 151 going in. I think this is going to be a pretty common situation where you have a lot of building. Between the building and roadway area, you're limited. I mean, you're not going to get back to the number you had. So if that were a discussion to try to say, can the city find the replacement trees in the vicinity of this project, since you're paying a fee for the difference between what you're not replanting, I think that would be a fair recommendation to try to keep them in the vicinity of this project.
And can staff or the applicant comment on the spacing between the off-site trees currently?
I'll give you a nominal number. So existing on Stevens Creek, the trees are, say, 20 to 30 feet on center.
Sorry, say that again?
The street trees on Stevens Creek are about 20 to 30 feet on center.
On center.
Spacing.
Okay, so about 20 to 30 feet between these trees?
Correct.
Does that allow for more tree additions, or?
Technically, yeah, but at a streetscape, 20 to 30 feet is a pretty common spacing. If you go tighter than that, yes, you can, but then you start to get a pretty dense canopy. And there's obviously more root competition. There's other complications with it as well.
Okay, no more questions.
So I have a follow-up question again on the trees. So I see there's 9 trees that are over 36 inches in diameter that are going to be removed. Those are pretty significant sizes. And there's, I think, 69 that are between 18 and 36 inches, so also pretty big trees. And maybe this is a question for staff, I don't know, but is it possible to relocate some of these trees to somewhere else in the city? Or are we just, limited in terms of what we can do with these trees?
I mean, without speaking to a specific tree, a tree that large would be pretty challenging to relocate. It would also be, it's species dependent. There's a lot of different factors that you would take into account. I would say in general, it would be pretty challenging to relocate a tree that large, in your 24 to 36 inch diameter. And the other kicker to that being, even if it is, say, a tree with high suitability to be relocated, there's still a decent chance that wherever that tree gets located, even with the best installation, all that, there's a high chance the tree could still die.
Commissioner Rao?
Question for staff. So for the single family, what is single family versus townhome? Is that still considered R3, or is the single family portion treated differently than R3?
The zoning for this site is P zoning, so it's PCG res.
Okay.
This isn't R3 zoning.
Okay, but in terms of the standards we'd apply for single family versus townhome, are there differences in what height would be allowed for single family versus townhome?
I forget offhand, I think townhome is 30, 35 feet in the R3TH. Single family is typically 28.
Mm-hmm.
I think obviously this is a sort of a different typology for single family. It looks in a lot of ways similar and compatible with the townhome development. It's a lot more vertical. You just don't share common walls, but the spacing is much tighter. I think it's in many ways the layout, but for the adjoining walls, it's very similar to a townhome type of product.
Is there technically a difference between a single family in this case and a detached townhome? If there is such a thing?
I don't think there's a term for a detached townhome. It's probably a term you could use that if you chose, but there's nothing defined that uses that language.
Separate question on the setbacks. The setback on Stevens Creek, did staff pursue any ways to maintain additional setback on the Stevens Creek side? I can understand the side setbacks given the commercial neighbors on the western side and the fence on the eastern side with the driveway. There may be less of an impact from the side setback issue, but the front setback, is that something that staff considered, whether they could get additional setback on the Stevens Creek side?
I think the way the site's laid out with the roads and the configuration, it would be difficult. And I think it's just an exception of 3 feet on Stevens Creek. So it's not a big deviation from what's required.
I guess we could say the same the other way around. Say, why not give us back that 3 feet of setback? Maybe a question for the applicant. Would you consider the additional 3 feet setback on Stevens Creek? It is in El Camino, after all.
Yeah, I can speak to this as well, and we can bring up the architect. But the challenge is with the spacing and the required setbacks in between the units. I think it's impossible to provide that additional setback without losing units or changing the unit typology.
So you don't have additional design options that would give us more setback on Stevens Creek?
I don't believe so.
And there's no capability for staff to deny that waiver?
It would be the same significant and negative impacts to the historic public health and safety. So those would be the same findings in order to deny the waiver.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, Commissioner Linskog?
Yeah, sorry, one more. This is to the staff. In addition to what the developer is proposing in terms of potentially, some financial incentive to the retail to help them relocate, is there anything that we can recommend as Planning Commission in terms of the economic development manager or the city offering, a rebate in permitting fees or like some sort of economic incentives that the city can offer to these retailers to help them resettle and encourage them to resettle somewhere else in the city?
I think that would be a good idea. I don't know what particular incentive, but to convey that the city should be open to offering some kind of incentive to relocate, presumably within the city, yeah, that would make sense.
Great, thank you.
Follow on that, is that something that would be conveyed within the motion or separately?
I think it could be conveyed in the motion unless I get corrected by the attorney.
Yeah, no, I do believe that the city has made contact with the retail tenants, and that's a function of our economic development department, and we can convey to staff here that when they make the presentation to council to have a section on these issues.
Well, to be specific, I'd like to recommend not just that the economic development manager talk to them, but that the city economic staff give concessions in terms of permitting fees or employment tax or whatever else we can come up with, but look at giving some sort of financial incentives to the retailers to help them relocate somewhere else in the city.
So a tangible financial incentive.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rao?
What is the lease expiry for Panera and Voyager?
June of 2026 for Panera, and Voyager, I believe per the termination right, is October of 2028.
And if they choose to exercise the right to stay till the end of lease, how does that?
There's no ability to do that per the lease.
So you have the right to terminate lease?
That's correct, and it was contemplated in the original lease as well.
And have any recent tenant improvements been made by the tenants in the property or?
The most recent one that I'm aware of was a drainage improvement that was made to the exterior, but I can't speak to which improvements have been made to the interior.
Okay. Has the applicant pursued trying to relocate the tenant to the neighboring property that does have a vacant retail?
They already leased that corner space, so the answer is yes. We talked to the adjacent property. They leased that corner space to a bank, but they have additional vacancies coming up, and there are other vacancies along Stevens Creek, and we've offered to make introductions to brokerages as well to help them identify additional available space in Cupertino.
Okay, thank you.
Great. I think at this point we have a number of community members that have been patiently waiting. So let's move to public comment.
That's right.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Fung.
So I was actually just going to ask in the thread about activities with economic development. Were there any similar adjustments with some of the other projects which displaced commercial sites, like Staples?
Like in terms of having a condition or a recommendation?
Yeah. Or having a consideration, maybe is the...
I don't think there was any particular recommendation in the motion. Certainly we've had members of the public speaking to loss of commercial and retail, but I don't recall anything where we had a more specific motion to offer some kind of clear incentive.
So, this is really a question for economic development, not for you, whether there were actions like that for other sites that have...
Right, and I do know economic development has been working
Okay.
with the tenants, so, but I just think the particular clear financial incentive, I don't remember that type of a specific recommendation.
Thank you.
Great. So we will move to public comments. City Clerk.
We have 2 speakers in person and 2 hands raised on Zoom. Our first speaker is Jennifer Griffin, followed by Asin Demir Lioglu. Welcome, Jennifer.
Through the chair, if we may inform the public, if they're seated here and wish to speak, they can fill out a blue comment card and hand it to the clerk at the front right.
Good evening, Planning Commission. This project looks nice. I think its only problem is that it's one of the 7 SB 330s that have whacked Cupertino in the last year. I am really, really concerned about the loss of retail. With this project, we will have lost 700,000 square feet of retail in Cupertino on Stevens Creek Boulevard in the last year. That is unprecedented. 15 years ago, I sat through this project when Panera and Voyager, and the previous one, I think it was Starbucks, we went through painstakingly that frontage where Panera is, stall by stall. We went through the parking access. The buildings on Seiche are the same age as Panera and Voyager. They're new retail for Cupertino. I really, really am upset that I obviously wasted my time 15 years ago to try to make this project be as viable as it is. Time can't be brought back. I lost a brother 10 years ago to cancer. If I had that time that I spent on city projects, I would love to have spent it with my brother. But this is what happens. I feel that I put my time in, and we have viable retail there now. We have Voyager. We used to go to Good Earth, which was inside this complex. There is a reciprocal parking arrangement with whatever other property owners. I know, I sat through it. My husband's eyeglass shop is on Seiche. The Target right now, the previous owner, when the Target went up, they wanted to close Seiche and put in housing on the Target property. We cannot close Seiche anymore because there's no north and southwest fire access down Seiche. Target is up for sale. We could have more housing dumped on that property, and God knows what would happen to Bandley. I think the project looks nice. I think they did a good job, but I really think that the city can do more to retain retail. We have 7 of these. Staples is across the street. SB 330 is a bad bill. It's a retail killer. I watched it from 2019 and wondered what the heck Nancy Skinner was thinking. Now I know. We have one of these SB 330 that's creeping up in the eastern side next to Cupertino High School. It's going to wipe out a bank, a daycare, and retail. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Our next speaker is Asin Demir Lioglu, followed by Whit Turner, followed by Samir Shah. Welcome, Asin.
Good evening, City Council members. I'm Asin Demir Lioglu. I'm a longtime resident of Cupertino, having first lived in an unincorporated area and later within the city limits after the annexation. Nearly 38 years ago, my family and I moved from a graduate student housing to our current home, where we have remained ever since. In our earlier years, we lived in a residential graduate student community designed around the shared courtyards. These spaces provided a safe environment for children to play while fostering interaction among parents and neighbors. Though modest in design, that community offered something invaluable, a strong sense of connection and belonging. For this reason, I appreciate many aspects of the proposed development. Its layout appears to reflect elements that can support family life and neighborhood interaction. However, I'm concerned that an essential component of community building is being overlooked. Accessible and informal gathering spaces, not only for the new community, but for the existing community at large. While I understand that including shared amenities such as clubhouses may increase HOA costs, I'm troubled by the loss of existing gathering places along Stevens Creek Boulevard, Panera Bread, and Voyager Cafe. As a retiree, I can attest that these cafes are more than commercial businesses. They are integral to daily life, places where residents meet regularly, participate in organized groups such as Cafe Italiano, and maintain social connections. They are places where people of all ages, young parents, seniors with walkers, neighbors with familiar faces, come together. They are places where you are greeted by name. From a planning perspective, the removal of such spaces represents more than a change in land use. It risks diminishing the social infrastructure that supports community well-being. For the city, losing these cafes may seem like a matter of revenue loss. For others, they may simply be places to buy coffee, but for many of us, they are an essential part of our social fabric. Taking them away means losing more than businesses. It means losing connection, routine, and community. Everything else around us that served as community gathering places are already gone. For current residents, this is a loss of daily life. For future residents, it's the loss of places where community begins. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Asin. Our next speaker is Whit Turner, followed by Samir Shah, followed by Lauren Burrs. Welcome, Whit.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for having us. Whit Turner on behalf of the Housing Action Coalition. We're a member-supported nonprofit, works to build more housing at all income levels in order to alleviate the state's housing crisis. Cupertino, super rich in jobs, high opportunity city. This is a place where affordable home ownership is out of reach for a lot of the families who work here. And this project is a common sense solution to that and the housing shortage in California as a whole. Transforming underutilized aging office space into townhomes, addressing the desperate need for family-sized housing with 3 and 4 bedrooms. And beyond the density, it's a smart transition for the site, replacing the office space, seeing a decrease in traffic, preserving trees, and providing open space. Our project review committee endorsed this proposal because it goes above and beyond our standards for family-oriented housing. I want to commend the Harvest Properties team for their work on this. They've done a great job, and we urge the Commission to move this forward immediately. Cupertino needs to keep its housing pipeline moving, and this project is ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Whit. Our next speaker is Samir Shah, followed by Lauren Burris, followed by Patrick Bum. Welcome, Samir.
Thank you. We weren't quite sure how this goes, so I think Lauren's going to speak on our behalf. We turned in 2 cards, but I think she'll do the talking.
Okay. Thank you so much for holding this committee hearing, and I want to say that our landlord has reached out to us, and they have made hopefully things as easy for us as possible moving forward. We have not heard from the city. We've heard from nobody who has told us anything until we found out from our landlord. And I wanted to correct what I heard when I heard that we had been reached out to. Just to let you guys know, we're a small business that almost died out with COVID. This place, this beautiful cafe that we built, it was our way to come out of COVID and have some hope again. And it's killing us. You know, we're going to do everything we can, and we hope that we will get help from other people to get there, but we're self-funded. We spent the last of our money on this build out. And now our biggest location is gone in the next 12 to 18 months. And I just want us to be at least be able to say that this is really hard for us. And we want to stay in Cupertino. And we'll do everything we can. But anything that the city can do, anything that any concessions you can make, any help to go to our next place and have our permitting fees waived, anything, it's going to help. And we would really, really ask for that from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Our next speaker is Patrick Bum, followed by David. Welcome, Patrick.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. My name is Patrick Bum with Borelli Investment Company. I'm speaking on behalf of our client, Safeway LLC. They're the property owner for the retail project adjacent to the subject property. Our client respectfully requests that the Commission continue the item to a future date rather than taking action tonight. This will allow the parties additional time to coordinate and address some outstanding issues in a thoughtful and productive manner. Our client was made aware of the proposed development approximately 48 hours ago, and they have not had sufficient time to fully evaluate the potential impacts. Given the shared infrastructure and interrelated considerations between the properties, we feel that additional time is warranted to ensure a well-coordinated outcome. Additionally, the existing reciprocal easement agreement reflects extensive coordination between the parties in the city of Cupertino, particularly with respect to traffic circulation and shared site improvements. The requirement for the city manager to approve a modification to the easement agreement under Section 23 further underscores that these matters extend beyond just private agreements and are integral to the city's original project approvals. Accordingly, we respectfully request that the considerations outlined in the letter that was sent to the Planning Commission today at 2:40 p.m. Be carefully evaluated and incorporated into any project conditions of approval. With that being said, thank you for your time, and I remain available for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Patrick. Our next speaker is David. Welcome, David.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Chair Casultron, Vice Chair Scharf, Planning Commission, thank you so much for this opportunity to speak this evening. We really appreciate it. I'm calling in asking the Planning Commission to oppose this development project, mostly because it will eliminate one of the true thriving hearts of this community in Voyager and Panera. I want to make the key point that this project is not like the 6 other SB 330 projects in Cupertino. But again, this project is not like the other SB 330 projects in the city. And the reason for that is it's eliminating active, thriving retail. This project eliminates a real community hub. If you spend any time around Voyager, you know the line often stretches out the door. If you come on a holiday or a weekend, it stretches around the building. This place is beloved. For a city like Cupertino that is rapidly losing its retail, its small businesses, and its vibrancy, it seems highly foolish to approve a project that eliminates a highly vibrant, highly successful, highly beloved small business, especially when this project offers 0 replacement retail for the community as a whole. I actually think the term retail here is a misnomer. We should be using the term community, because Voyager and Panera are very different from a store where you just walk in, buy some essential items, and leave. Voyager and Panera are active, thriving communities. Do a search for any kind of meetup in Cupertino. Doesn't matter if it's political activism, startups, a knitting club, a book club. They take place in this complex, and that's what's being destroyed here. I would wager to say that more community takes place week by week in Voyager and Panera than does in Quinlan Center. And really, the issue at hand here is the Cupertino community, not 2 random cafes or just retail. This especially affects seniors, young people, and students. Cupertino offers very little in the way of third spaces for seniors, young people, and students to gather. This project, eliminates vital community space for people who can't easily invite others into their homes. As you heard earlier, the owners of Voyager poured their time and energy and money completely into renovating the space. Their loss is profound. And I'm not sure that the Planning Commission or the City Council understands just how profound that loss is for the owners of Voyager and for the community as a whole. They offered the city so much with everything they've given us these many years, and it seems in return, the city is just sending bulldozers to tear down their business. This really needs to be rectified. It's a loss for Cupertino and for these owners. It's a tremendous injustice. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, David. We have no speaker cards in person and no hands raised on Zoom, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we'll now bring this back to the commission. Do we have any questions? Or we actually, I apologize, the applicant also has an opportunity to respond to the comments.
Just wanted to respond with regards to the adjacent Sageway retail. We do have a private REA in place that we coordinated with them when they were developing their property. Our plans respect that easement. There's no change to the REA that is needed. We still have the same maintenance rights. They would like to change it so that we no longer have use of the trash receptacles, which we're open to, and we have said that we are open to. But if you look on the plans, there is no impact to the REA whatsoever. It's still maintained in the exact same way that the city approved originally.
Great, thank you. Any, Commissioner Rao?
Yeah, while the applicant's up at the podium, maybe you can stay at the podium. We have questions for you. So, and I don't know if staff can project the letter we received from the from Mr. Blum, I believe. Can we project that?
I don't have the ability to do that. I don't have it.
Can the city clerk project the letter?
Let me see if I can do it.
Thank you. And so while the applicant's up here, if you make comment on the letter that I presume you have read, and firstly, the shared roadway, can you comment on what portion of the roadway is split as far as your lot line is concerned? And we will call on the member of the public to clarify on their behalf as well. I think we have the city attorney. Can you clarify if we may call on the member of the public to comment as needed?
I just wanted to mention, Commissioner, that these are important issues, and it involves the site, and so I think it's appropriate to entertain some discussion. But keep in mind, this is a discussion between these adjoining private landowners, and so I'm not sure how germane it is to the specific issues really before us in terms of their development application.
Yeah, if I may clarify why this is germane, I think benefit of hindsight with Westport is showing us that had we appropriately codified the responsibilities of that shared driveway in Westport, we would not have seen the amount of resident pushback that we have had and the city's involvement from transportation and public works to put in signage and various other requests that have come our way. And so I would beg to differ that that shared driveway is still an area that needs some level of clarification, maybe from the applicant.
Yeah, but
if you might comment on what areas you guys agree on and just sort of help us find where there may be anything here to tease apart.
So if you access the civil drawings, you can look at this tentative map there. There's a parcel H that's listed, I believe. That is all of the driveway land area that we own.
Sorry, do you want to put it up there? Or?
I don't think, this was not part of our presentation, so I don't have a way to pull this one up specifically. I guess if you pull up the site plan, let's go.
If you have a hard copy, you can just put it on that.
Does this work? Right. Is this going to work? How do I?
Yep.
Can you see this?
Yep.
Oh, that's kind of cool. So parcel H, so just to orient you, you have Stevens Creek Boulevard right here. Apologies, my finger. Thank you. You have Stevens Creek Boulevard right here. Here's the main entrance to the overall site. These parcels reflect the different townhomes that we have. Parcel H is the component of the shared driveway that we own. And you will see if you then were to overlay this with our architectural plans or our landscape plans, we are proposing to preserve that component of the shared driveway so that the Sageway retail, facing Sage, maintains all of the access that they currently have today.
There is no change to the driveway, just to reiterate it. And there's no change to any portion of the easement that has been agreed to.
What documents exist that govern the obligations of each parcel owner on the driveway?
That is the REA that was referenced.
Sorry, can you expand REA? What is REA?
Reciprocal easement agreement. Okay. So it was an agreement that Blair and the Borelli family negotiated back in 2014 that contemplated the idea that there was a shared driveway and that there was some shared trash receptacles area and the access going back and forth. So we provided access to them on our portion of the shared driveway. They provided access to us on their portion of the shared driveway, and then also provided access to us for the retail trash.
Okay. So in the scenario currently where you have retail and both parties here have retail, any usage of the shared driveway by the public that may result in potential accidental injury that results in litigation is treated how?
I'm sorry, I'm counsel for the applicant here. I don't believe these are germane to planning commission questions as far as the liabilities between two private parties in a contract. I just think we're digressing from the application before you.
The context for the question is once the fence is erected for the development, the fence would be to the west of this shared driveway, and a portion of that shared driveway remains the lot of the parcel. So is the HOA going to be liable for any injuries or accidental impact to members of the public using the shared driveway?
That will be determined through the contract and through civil litigation. I don't think we need to worry about it in the planning commission hearing tonight. I mean, it's the liabilities for an accident in the future based off the contract, I don't think is what we should be talking about tonight. I mean, we could go through it. There are maintenance obligations in the REA, but I don't think the purpose of this hearing is not to go through this contract. The applicant is working with the neighboring owner and is entertaining changes to the REA to address their concerns, but they aren't obligated to.
Does the applicant understand that there have been significant issues involving shared driveways in a neighboring site, which was formerly the Oaks?
So I apologize, but Chair, we are going pretty far afield. It is not agendized for this wide-ranging concerns. There are legitimate concerns. I respect that. Commissioner Riley's are really good questions. They're just not agendized for discussion tonight here. I mean, if there was the issues of the REA, liability, use of driveways, if those type of issues were germane for this particular development application, then the Brown Act would require that, that be part of the agenda for this discussion, and it is not.
Point of inquiry to the city attorney, these could be potential conditions of approval.
I think the relationship between these private parties who execute this easement agreement 12 years ago, I would expect that staff would have incorporated these into the conditions of approval if they thought there was germane to this application.
But what I heard from staff is outreach is expected from whom? I believe the outreach is expected from the people that were noticed, in this case, the neighboring retail.
And we did notice them. The property was sold from the prior ownership that we negotiated with. And so we noticed the new ownership as part of our community outreach, and we never heard back until, 24 hours ago.
And so this hearing is their opportunity to come back to us, and that's what they have done.
The one thing that I will address is that's all outlined in the existing REA. And unless we amend the REA, it would be handled exactly in the same way as it is right now with the retail properties.
So is it fair to say, just a closing question on this topic, that you believe you have agreement with them on surrendering the use of the trash area and then the modifications to allow for the shared driveway to be used by the other party? So if you can comment on their Ask 1 and Ask 3, I think, in their letter.
We do have a private easement agreement with them, the REA as we've been referring to it, that does address both of those. That is correct.
And would you comment on number 2, which seems out of the scope of your property? Their Ask number 2. Which one? That's the lot line adjustment. The curb cuts.
Yes. At this point, we are not open to a lot line adjustment. I don't know why they want our land without compensation, but we are open to amending the REA as we told them. if there is interest.
Okay, thank you.
If he's done.
Okay.
Can
Okay.
I have one question?
Yes.
Hi. Sorry. So the driveway that cuts across from Alves to Stevens Creek, right? The main driveway. We've had issues with similar developments where neighbors use that as a cut through, and generating complaints from the residents in that development. Have you guys considered that? Have you put in any kind of measures in place to protect the residents from a lot of traffic coming through?
Yeah, so I think the best choice for this was how we designed it. So we intentionally chose, at one point, let me step back a sec, we at one point thought of an idea where you had almost a direct connection that was almost straight from Alves to Stevens Creek Boulevard. After discussions internally with the team and thinking about the issues of cross-traffic, we intentionally chose to have that road meander all the way through the site to, frankly, make it very inefficient for someone who wants to be a cut-through traffic individual. And so that was our solution to that potential issue.
Staff, based on your experience, what happened with Westport, would you recommend anything more like signs or, because I know we just had this conversation about, how to minimize traffic because that's not going to stop them in my experience. So yeah, I would be interested in staff recommendations.
Yeah, I think this is the design layout's quite a bit different though too, that this is not that sort of straight shot that we're looking at Westport, where in that case, Mary Avenue sort of meanders and takes you further before you come back to Stevens Creek to make your right turn. There you have a straight road that you can see Stevens Creek, and I think it's, even with speed bumps, it makes sense for people that want to cut through to go that way. Here, when I look at the site, you're sort of looking from Alves south, you're going to see buildings. And then you have a road that's going to swing all the way to the west. So I think the layout is, people are looking to cut through, they're looking for efficiency. This is not efficient for cutting through.
I had one question for the applicant. I think you've heard a lot of concern from the community around the loss of retail, and I know that you did consider alternative designs that would have kept the retail. Could you speak a little bit more to why those did not end up working out?
Sure. So as I mentioned in the presentation, March to July last year, we did some extensive kind of alternate design options that would have preserved the retail along Stevens Creek Boulevard. And we worked on that with staff. Ultimately, after coming up with that solution, we were advised by staff that unfortunately that modification to our application wouldn't be permissible under SB 330. And we would have to resubmit the application. This was 12 to 18 months into the process already. So we would have been looking at minimum a 1 to 2 year kind of overall extension to the project. And in addition to that, since we had submitted in April 1st of 24, the housing element had come in, so a higher density requirement would have been hitting on the other side of the project as well. So when we originally looked at this, it was a potential loss of 16 units. With the advisement that we would have to resubmit the application, we were looking at a minimum of 32 to 40 units going away from the project based on that.
Great, thank you so much. Do we have any other questions for the applicant? Yes.
Yes. So questions regarding the side setback, I believe we have reduced that as proposed quite significantly. How is fire accepting the reduced setback? Do they have the ability to get ladders up to the roof of the building at 50 feet?
So the fire department did approve their plans with conditions. So the project will be required to comply with fire code, but they did give an approval of the project.
What were those conditions?
So there are several conditions. They are included in the resolutions, particularly for the architectural and site approval. They do pertain to the ground letter access, aerial access, and then the fire lanes, parking, fire hydrants, fire flow, et cetera.
And so, point of inquiry, is this hearing allowed to ask questions about fire, or is that out of the scope of the planning hearing? Question to either staff or the city attorney.
We can assist with very general questions, but we are not representative of the fire department, and there are no representatives of the fire department here tonight.
So, are the fire, so is this going to be ground ladder access, or is it aerial apparatus access in the case of a 50 feet construction?
There will be both aerial access and ground ladder access.
But the project was reviewed considering which approach?
Both.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? If not, I will.
Can we, before we close the hearing, can we invite the neighboring retail if he wishes to respond to what he has heard so far? The member of the public, if they are still present. Can we unmute the member of the public that represents the retail to the east to allow them to comment?
City attorney. So
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Sorry, to clarify, city attorney, is there a duration of time that we should allow? This is sort of.
Yeah, we normally don't provide second opportunities like this. Then other speakers might want to also have that opportunity.
Yes. I think this is somewhat of a deviation from our typical practice.
So we have a potential condition of approval involving a shared driveway. We'd like to hear from the person sharing the driveway on whether they would be open to our conditions of approval potentially that they're requesting.
Use of the shared driveway is actually not a condition of approval, and it's not part of today's item.
Yeah, I think this has been discussed and answered. If they have any other comments, I think they're going to discuss privately, and then it'll come to the city council. So I think as far as the planning commission is on this topic, I think we've discussed it extensively.
We have, through the chair, we have had previous hearings where we've allowed members of the public who are in the room to come up and comment. We have had dividend homes hearing where members of the public came up and responded to comments. I think it's only fair to the neighboring retail that we allow them to comment, similar to what we've done in other hearings.
Those were comments made by the public that were directly impacted by the neighbors in their project, and they had comments germane to this, not for this private discussion. I'm a little bit hesitant to get involved in, this commercial discussion between two private entities.
It's the discretion of the chair whether you wish to support that or not.
I think we've been told that is not particularly relevant to the hearing that is at hand tonight. And so I'm reluctant to allow dedicated time to a member of the public on a topic that we are not approving at the moment.
Are we ready to make a motion?
Okay. So with that, if there are no further questions for the applicant, then we will close the public hearing. And yes, bring it back to the commission for comments.
So for the sake of getting us started, I'd like to make a motion to approve the project as written with the addition of requiring the city to provide significant tangible financial benefits to the retail establishments to allow them to relocate within Cupertino somewhere else.
I would like to make a friendly amendment to, I don't know, staff can correct me if they think this is maybe too specific, but in terms of city assistance of the relocation, that staff consider expedited permitting and potential fee waivers where possible to assist Voyager, and as well as an evaluation of the fees that the businesses would be paying and to see where there might be any opportunity to assist.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine as long as those are not the only things they consider, but they cast a wider net in terms of, can the Arts Commission help provide some, art help? Can the city, expedite permits or waive permitting fees or, pretty much anything else we can provide as a city to help them across all of our departments and commissions.
So just so that everyone's clear, so the record's clear, perhaps I want to ask the original mover, Commissioner Linskog, for you, to the extent that you heard the chair's suggestions, for you to start the motion afresh and then obtain the second.
Okay. All right. I move for us to accept the recommended action and an additional amendment that the city provide significant tangible financial benefits to the retail establishments that are getting dislocated, including looking at fee expedited approvals, fee reductions, and pretty much anything else that the city can provide through its different departments and commissions. Does that cover everything?
Yes.
Well, let's get a second on that, and then if there's a friendly amendment, then someone else can ask for a friendly amendment.
So I'll second that for the purpose of discussion. I think that, just my comment here would be that, hey, I love Voyager too. This situation does arise. I hope that, that there would be a uniform application here. That, we're not saying we love this business and we don't love this other one. But I certainly would agree that, and I think that I would say this for any business that's being dislocated, the city, I would encourage the Economic Development Group to consider exactly the kinds of things, fee waivers and expedited permitting, to allow them to stay.
Yeah, if I can just comment quickly on that. No, I agree. I think it's a slippery slope, right? It's like, who do we support, who do we not? It's tricky. I 100% get it. But I think in this case, they are very much part of the social fabric of our community. They are an important part of the social fabric of our community. I think as many speakers have mentioned, they're always packed. They're a meeting area for our children, for our seniors, for, so many of our community members. So anything we can do as a city to help them land on their feet and find another place within the city where they can thrive, I think it is our responsibility to do that.
Through the chair, I don't know where this stops. If we start to give subsidies from the city, you have Panera, you have the retail that is lost at Staples, at United Furniture, and so on. I would actually wonder why we wouldn't motion this to require or encourage any lease termination to go towards tenant improvement for a future location. It's not like Cupertino does not have retail space. We have plenty of retail space. We have 2,000 square feet at the Westport that is sitting as a shell. We were told there's retail to the east of this property. There's retail available at the shopping center that hosts the Lee Sandwich. There's retail further along to the east of the Dividend Homes property that we just approved. So we can go down Stevens Creek, and nearly every shopping center has retail available. This isn't a question of space. This is a question of dollars for tenant improvement. And perhaps that is a matter between the parcel owner terminating the lease and the tenant. I don't know why the city would get in the middle of that, and where does it stop? Because every tenant that is losing retail would face the same issue. So I would ask us to consider encouraging the matter to be resolved through the use of TI dollars from the parcel owner.
Well, my response to that would be, and I think this is something that needs to be discussed more broadly at the council level, but we do have a lot of businesses that are about to be displaced through townhome and just apartment development, and to leave them all without any support for relocation, I think is going to be problematic.
Through the chair, the recommendation was to make a condition of approval to encourage the parcel owner to consider using any dollars from early lease termination towards tenant improvement dollars for the tenant displaced. It was not that we leave them hanging. It was that we encourage this between the two parties. The city, let me remind my colleagues here, the city is running a structural budget deficit, and we can't go from project to project waiving fees. Thank you.
I understand, and the applicant is providing support for the businesses to move anywhere. Now, what we are proposing is an incentive for the businesses to remain within this city, and I think that's the difference. Commissioner Fung.
Yeah, trying to come up with a budget for supporting improvements or moving costs, that's between two private parties. It's up to them to decide what to do there. What we are charging, we're charging permit fees, we're charging these things, and I think we can make a decision. We want to keep, and I would really say uniformly, if the policy from economic development is, hey, we're going to give up X percent of our fees, there's a clear process that's trying to make those recover, to make those equal. But that is just a decision that we need to make. And I think that, we have many examples of businesses where I remember I had, at the behest of a neighbor, I went to talk to somebody who had shortly run a shop, one of the ones in the, I can't remember, it's where, right by Main Street, the other, the thing in the condo building, I can't remember, 818 or whatever that thing is. Yeah, and this was one of these things where, the cost of meeting the permit and inspections, just made it impossible, right? So we're not saying we're not becoming a partner in the business, but we, certainly can be an advocate for them to be here.
Thank you. And what I might add to that is, what we are motioning this evening is a one-off, but many cities do have formalized programs where they do support businesses in this type of instance. And we just happen to not have this formalized yet. But it's not unusual. Commissioner Rao.
Through the chair, let me just remind ourselves that any waivers are fees that the rest of the residents had to pay, like Ms. Griffin sitting out here. There is no free dollars going around. When we waive fees on developers, that is borne by the rest of us. And we are seeing that right now with the city considering a tax ballot measure, the city considering utility tax increases. Staff costs are not free. There's a cost of recovery. And when we hand out dollars, that really we should be encouraging those to be coming from the parcel owner that is depriving the city of retail. I think we lose ourselves the opportunity to encourage that kind of cost of loss to be clawed back. And I'd like to ask staff whether we have any in lieu fees for loss of retail that we might apply here.
No, there's none that I'm aware of. And, I think the motion to try to capture support for the business through something tangible, that I get. I think some of this we would have to look into as well, like even fee waivers, whether they're feasible or not. But what I'm hearing from the commission is this is a serious issue where you're trying to do something more than just general outreach to a business, to try to go that step further and offer what you can. So I think that if that's what you're trying to convey to the council when they consider this, that would make sense to include.
Yeah, if I can just add a quick comment on this. Yes, everything costs money. Everything is a trade-off. But I think as we've heard from multiple members of the community today, this is a trade-off that many residents would be willing to make. We are getting in lieu fees as part of this project. This would, in a sense, represent a small reduction, a very, very small reduction in the grand scheme of things of the, 10 million or so lieu fees that we're getting. It's well worth it if we're able to keep these retail establishments in the city. So I think this is a trade-off that you would find a lot of residents would agree to.
Cool. Through the chair, question for the applicant. What is the typical tenant improvement dollars for a tenant of square footage of Voyager, if you may comment on that? I think you may just speak into
Okay. It really depends on the condition of the space. I'm not a retail expert, admittedly. We primarily focus on office space and housing. So it varies. We own another retail center, and improvements can be $20 per square foot. They can be $250 per square foot. Again, it really just depends on, is it a restaurant user? What type of infrastructure is there that can be reutilized, et cetera?
Is that a question staff can comment on? What sort of dollar amount are we looking at?
If the speaker is not a retail expert, I'm even less of one, so I don't know.
I have a hard time believing the applicant claiming not to be a retail expert, having had retail in a frontage for a long time. I would love to hear even a back of the envelope number.
I really am not a retail expert. It's not my focus. It's been an accessory use of some of the office that we own. So I just wanted to admit I am not a retail expert. But if you use the upper end, and again, it just depends on the condition of the space. Let's say you use $200 per square foot. It's a little bit under 2,000 square feet. Let's say that puts you at close to $400,000.
Okay, so we're talking about $400,000 of tenant improvement. Question for staff: what sort of permit fees would that be?
I don't know those off the top of my head. Tenant improvement fees are largely done through the building division as well.
Okay.
So can I ask you a question as well? Sure. Are Panera and Voyager paying significantly below market rent compared to what they would have to pay in other locations in the city that, we're not giving that big COVID discount?
Yes, I think Voyager is definitely paying below market rent because of when the lease was ultimately signed. Panera is paying percentage rent, as I mentioned, because we, during COVID, just decided, hey, we'll just agree to a low occupancy cost. And they're paying 8% of their revenues, which is, I would say, on the low side of, a retailer's occupancy costs.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's my concern, is that even if Voyager gets the tenant improvement money from somewhere and the impact fees are waived, wherever they go, they'll probably be paying a lot higher rent than they are now. And, as we all know, restaurants are not high margin businesses.
I would agree, and I don't want to speak for Voyager either. They may have a different build out, or again, it really just depends on the infrastructure that's in the current space. This was previously a Pete's Coffee, and they vacated during COVID, and so that can change the build out costs. So
right, yeah, I don't know how much of the Pete's infrastructure they kept when they took over. Okay, thank you,
Commissioner Rao.
Through the chair, we can't go from hearing to hearing waiving $400K in fees. We just had a last hearing where we went through a $400K fee waiver for a gate, essentially, and now we have another potential $400,000 fees or more. We can't account for the permit aspect. So maybe there's a friendly amendment to this that limits the fee waiver to just the permit fees and not the cost of tenant improvement.
We're not waiving any fees here. That would be up to either the city council or the city staff. We're not waiving any fees here. We can't come up with an amount.
So what was the motion was to encourage?
It was to encourage.
City to, can the motion be repeated again? It was to encourage the city to do what?
To basically do whatever they can to help the displaced, but we can't put a dollar amount on it because we don't know what the city can or cannot do. So I don't know that that we can start putting dollar amounts on this.
Okay. I think as long as it's a good faith encouragement to the city without putting a dollar amount on it or a specific fee, I think that we sort of leave it to the economic development to see what they can do.
Agreed. I think the chair made a good point, and I think maybe somebody else did too, but this really needs to be an ongoing program that we do for all of our retail establishments that get displaced in the future. We can't be doing this piecemeal. So we should be looking at establishing a more structured, more formal program. And that's also more fair to all the retailers.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see the city having the money to do that. I mean, we've lost so much retail can you imagine us paying for House of Falafel and United Furniture? And I mean, it just goes on and on. I mean, we're going to lose Marina Foods eventually if that ever gets built. I mean, Commissioner Rao has a good point. I mean, the city's running a deficit, and the fees are set at a level to recover costs. It's not profit for the city. So anything we don't collect comes out of the general fund. So it would be great to save Voyager. I mean, I love that place. And I would hope the city could come to some accommodation. But for a general policy for all businesses, I think it needs to be on a case-by-case basis.
And that would be something that's up to economic development.
Right.
To make that recommendation.
It's not up to us to do here
Yep,
tonight.
agreed.
Party City will be harder for them to make.
They already have a
case.
tenant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
but,
no.
I mean, they went out of business.
Yeah.
So.
No, I mean, but
You
had
make
they
a
wanted
good
to
point.
relocate.
Yeah, no, you're right. It needs to be case by case. We can't have something that's financially prohibitive for the city, but something to help our displaced retail, whatever we can do that's financially feasible for us as a city. I think we should definitely be looking at.
You had mentioned at one point that that the impact fees that were collected here were significant, and I don't think that was an implication that the city was trying to we're going to turn back those. I wouldn't be supportive of that, but I definitely think when I could be wrong on this. We had the Starbucks by the post office came for a hearing so that they could open at 6 a.m. instead of 9 a.m. I think, conditional use permit modification, and I believe I asked about how much that cost, and it was quite an expensive hearing. So those are the places where I hope that there would be an opportunity. At that time, I believe they were talking about it was $25,000 or something like that. So that I think that really would be the kinds of things that we would want to really say are, as a city, are we willing to forgive some part of that to keep the businesses that are here and want to stay here in town.
So,
any further comments? Okay, then we will move to a vote.
Wait.
Oh, I'm
no. Can you? So is this a vote just for the suggestion that the city?
No, it's a vote for approving the project as recommended by staff, plus this amendment.
I mean, if it helps, we can separate the two motions. We can move the staff recommendation.
Yeah, can we do that, please?
But I don't know there's any reason to do that. But people should comment. I mean, I think people should comment on how they feel about this.
Vice Chair.
Okay, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, with all the state laws, we will end up with projects that don't meet our development standards, that violate the height, the setback, the minimum parking, the lot coverage, the maximum density, the open space, the tree removal, the landscaping, the inclusionary affordable housing. But for those of us that attended the Planning Commission Academy, as we were told, we really have no discretion anymore. These projects, if you don't approve them, HCD will be contacted, you could be sued, and you will always lose. So this is not what we have discretion on. I know about the concerns of the loss of retail, the environmental issues, the affordable housing, that those waivers or concession, but we really have no choice here. I would hate to lose Voyager. Thank you.
Commissioner Rao?
Yeah, I had more questions. I don't think we are ready for a vote yet, unless you want to call the vote, Chair. But I do have a question for staff. The 50 feet, does that include the rooftop deck, or is the rooftop deck above the 50 feet?
Yeah, it's to the highest point of the building.
Does that include the rooftop deck?
Yes.
The top of the rooftop deck?
Yes, the highest point.
Okay. And was there any means by which staff could have maintained 45 feet versus 50? My concern is we have a number of these projects coming at us up and down Stevens Creek. Up until now, I don't think we have approved 50 feet. Staff can correct me if I'm wrong. Have you approved 50 feet on any other project so far?
Well, I think you had mentioned Westport earlier, which was over 70.
Which is different
Housing
density,
type.
yes.
But for
48.
townhomes, they're typically running 40 or more, some in the high 30s.
Right. So my concern here is at 40 feet, we are already 10 feet over what the general plan recommends for R3 or requires for R3. Here we have single family units at 50 feet. The next project that comes along asks for 60 feet. And if I understand staff right, we have no ability to deny that. And they could go 60 and 70. And at what point can we deny these?
So to clarify, the standard for residential in heart of the city is 45 feet. And then, no, we do not. Again, it's the same findings for significant buildings, public health, and safety. That's the only criteria for which we can deny the waiver.
So again, at what height can we deny these?
I think that's unknown. I don't know. You would have to be able to tie that back to some health and safety concern, something specific.
And is that something that staff has a position on in terms of, I mean, is this just, so the next project that we hear, let's say Bandley Drive is going to be 60 feet? And we'd have to approve that?
Again, I'm not going to speculate on what we might get. We look at each project as it comes. But again, I think it's been articulated here. Under density bonus law, we have obligations to look at the project as designed. And unless you have specific reasons where you can cite a specific health and safety impact, there's really not a lot you can do. The burden is on the city to make that finding.
And I'd like to invite the applicant up to the podium if the applicant has any thoughts on whether the 45 feet versus 50 feet is required financially to make the project feasible. I believe the law requires clarification on that.
There's no need for financial feasibility for a waiver under state density bonus law. It's only for concessions. It needs to be a cost savings, and that is not one of our concessions.
Okay.
And just, I assume this will become up. I don't believe there's a second, just in case that's not lost in the.
Oh, I think there was a second to the motion. I did have a clarifying question for staff. So, with this motion that is on the table, the next step would just be that staff would take it back and study options. And would those options be presented anywhere to council, or would they just be worked out?
In terms of options for the financial feasibility?
Or just, options in terms of helping the business relocate. Whatever comes out of that exploration, what would happen with that?
That's a good question. I think we could report out what is feasible. I mean, I think some things like fee waivers are a direct request. Can you do it or not? But I think some of the discussions going to went on to like policies in terms of all businesses, some businesses, where do you draw the line? I would think it's open to discussion that the city will be having, because this is already, preservation of retail is already something that's getting looked at through the work program and is generating comments at most public meetings these days. But I think in terms of specific assistance for this project, we could look at what is feasible of the things that have been mentioned. So that would be, communicating with our economic development staff and others to see what would even be possible.
Great, thank you very much.
And would that get reported back to us or to the council?
It would definitely be what we could between now and the council meeting in 2 weeks.
Okay.
And I would be happy to follow up too with this body to just say what we've found based on this discussion.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, without making any change to the motion that's on the table, I would just say that because this is on an expedited schedule, I think that certainly from my side, I would say we would recommend that this be something that you prepare for part of the council presentation, and that would include, if it's impossible, include outreach to the, Panera and to both guys here.
Correct. And obviously we have time because the approval and relocation could happen some distance apart as well.
Yeah.
Question for staff. does staff go through the heart of the city specific plan to ensure that every objective standard within the heart of the city specific plan is either waived by the applicant or is adhered to?
We look at the heart of the city. Some of it is objective, some of it is not.
To the extent that specific standards are quantified and therefore objective, is the expectation that either the applicant adheres to that or it is waived?
Especially where they're referenced in the general plan, yes. If there is an objective, measurable standard, yes.
And if the applicant has not explicitly sought a waiver of something that is deemed objective, would that be basis for finding that the project is not in compliance with the heart of the city specific plan?
Well, the one thing to keep in mind is there's an unlimited number of waivers.
Sure, but we can only comment on the waivers that are in the agenda packet.
True.
The applicant may then choose to come back with a different application.
I'm sorry if I can interrupt. This sounds like you're trying to learn how to do your job, and this doesn't sound relevant to the agenda item right now. If you're trying to figure out how to be a planning commissioner, I would
Through the chair,
suggest we
the
take
comment is not
offline.
appropriate. The commissioner was not recognized through the chair.
Okay, I'd just like to ask that we all be respectful. Do you have any final questions for staff?
I do. I don't think the comment was complete yet. So, under what basis would this project be viewed non-compliant with the heart of the city specific plan?
I would need something more specific than that. I don't know if there's something you have specifically in mind.
Yes, so specifically if there are objective standards in the heart of the city specific plan that were not explicitly sought as a waiver, would that be basis for finding the project not compliant with the heart of the city specific plan?
I'm not aware of anything it's not compliant with.
Okay. So in staff's opinion, this has been assessed to see everything that is objective has either been accepted or waived?
Yeah, that is correct, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to briefly comment. First of all, thank you to the applicant. I know that you have put a lot of thought into this and you did want to make the retail work, and that was a challenge. I also want to thank the community for coming out and making your many comments. We hear you especially on the business front, and we hope that there are ways that we can assist in the relocation if that happens. But in general, I do think that this is a good location for housing, and it should be actually very supportive to the businesses around it that do remain. Again, hopefully we can find a home for Voyager and Panera. And those are my comments. Any other comments from the commission?
Yeah, I had a couple comments as well. One of them I made in other hearings as well. You did comment on the financial benefit of this project to the city. I would encourage you to reach out to FUHSD and CUSD, the school districts, and Cupertino values the school districts highly here, and having a report on that, the impact of new home development, with Prop 13, the impact is significant and appreciated without you, trying to cut any kind of deal. But if there's an opportunity to find a synergy, or something that makes these things work better, I think it would really be great. I know they're very open to having that discussion. Number two item, I'm surprised nobody commented on this. I thought that the arborist report was really notable. It was very interesting. Often it is not. So this one was, one of the things that I saw in the report was that I initially was surprised given the number of trees that were going to be removed. That's part of building things, and it was even clear in the staff report that there were issues about, the site is somewhat overgrown because of the history. But I thought it was very clear in the arborist report that it was kind of a lot of where it is at today was detrimental, and I think it was very supportive of the kind of plan, a number of things that were embodied in the plan you had. So one of the things I would, again, I just as a comment, perhaps as a comment to staff, that the number, when it's expressed as a ratio or expressed as a count on the table, that's something I think that we want to embody good practice in the way that we do things, in every element of what we do, which includes the landscape plan. and that, you know, the arborist actually was pretty, I'm surprised they're just pretty outspoken compared to what I've normally seen here, that well, you know, you don't want to have a 1-for-1 replanting here. One of the ones that was particular, in light of some of the comments we've had here today, one of the things that was happening was that you were preserving a number of pear trees that I think the arborist just didn't like at all. So I would actually say that this is an example of a place where, you know, maybe there's an opportunity to be forward-thinking and to kind of honor the intent of the heart of the city without necessarily sticking with a tree that might not have been a good choice. Now, again, given the comments we've had here today, you probably shouldn't touch those trees. But, you know, I would just consider that this is something where, you know, at Apple Park, it's quite notable. There are a lot of stories about, you know, the way that the planting was done there is very forward-thinking. And there's an opportunity here to do that in this site as well. Let's see. We had commented at the very outset about net loss. And that was actually one of the big concerns, you know. Again, the report is absolutely correct in that the number of units produced puts us at a much larger deficit, particularly in, you know, the very low income area rate, because these are for sale and they're going to be very expensive units. I do think that it is notable that much of this site was not intended as they were not designated housing element areas, and that does mean that for the other, you know, 3 parcels, there's a significant number of more homes being presented there. And I hope that I would encourage you, again, in preparation for the city council meeting, that you take the most favorable, positive way, you know, reasonable interpretation of that, so that people coming into that can understand, you know, this is a plus. Overall, it is a plus. You know, we're coming out way ahead here, as opposed to being way behind. You know, you see that number, the negative 250 or something, and it you know, that kind of speaks to that there is a problem, and we've spoken about it as a group. That the nature of the projects that are coming forward, you know, with townhomes in particular, are causing significantly lower density, right? But these are the projects that can get built today. That makes them, you know, brings value here, and you know, and I think that these will be healthy things for the city. You know, we have fewer of the issues about the, you know, 80-foot tall building. I also want to comment that I did also think it was notable. This project's development team was unusually tied to Cupertino. You know, there's having people who are longtime residents and who grew up here. So, you know, I think that's good. That actually showed to me in terms of the consideration for how this was going to interface with the city. You know, this is not a math problem to solve. This is a place that you know, that you are a part of. So I think that you know, that is meaningful as well. That particular site, I worked at Apple for 13 years, starting at the very beginning of my career. The amount of positive mojo that is in that site is kind of out of this world. The number of things that change people's lives that were developed in those buildings, pretty darn incredible. And I believe that is it for my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Fung. Do we have any other, Commissioner Linscogg?
Yeah, just have a quick comment. I do want to commend the developer. I know you guys have worked really hard at trying to come up with an attractive, well thought through development, and it shows. You know, it's like pages after pages of really thoughtful details. And I know the retail is a tough one, and I know you guys tried, so thank you for that. I mean, I know we've gone back and forth on it quite a bit, but I do want to commend you guys for the effort you've put into thinking through all the details and trying to make this development as the best it can be. And I think it's going to be a real asset to the community. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Vice Chair.
Vice Chair? No?
Yeah.
Yes, Commissioner Rao?
Go ahead. I can go next.
Yes, he said he did not have a comment.
Do you want me to go next, or?
Commissioner Rao, yes.
Yeah, so I'd like to firstly congratulate the applicant. I think this is a good project. I think it adds housing to the community in an area that is not surrounded by single-family homes and therefore is least disruptive to the neighborhood in terms of single-family homes. I think this is a good addition to the businesses that are surrounding your property. The YMCA will appreciate hopefully new memberships that will come from your development. The Happy Days will probably look forward to young toddlers coming in at walking distance from this property. I think the project is styled attractively, architecturally. I think these are well-designed projects. I want to congratulate Kevin and the team on the work that's gone into this. So I think this is a good stylish addition to the Stevens Creek stretch that we're seeing a number of projects coming up. I do appreciate the community recreational area that you're going to have. That is something that not all projects have, and you've been thoughtful to provide that. So certainly speaks to your long-term ownership of the site. I know your family has been involved with the site for 45 years, and that kind of long-term ownership is very rare in commercial real estate. It's often transactional. It's sold every 5 years, every 10 years. And so holding and operating a site for 45 years is very, very rare. And so I want to thank you for having that sort of skin in the game in the community. I think that's really appreciated. And the fact that you're turning it into thoughtful development shows that you've really appreciated what that property has been to you as a property for your family. And so certainly we appreciate all of that. I also appreciate the art that you are going to maintain on the property. Again, we don't see that many times. Developers choose to do the art in lieu fees. And so that's going to be a net positive addition. So overall, I think we have a win-win here in terms of adding new units, architecturally appealing units, adding units where there is no disruption to the neighborhood that brings in business to Target, to Happy Days and everything else. There are a few things I would encourage you to consider. We've talked about more trees in the off-site area, which is the street frontage. If you might work with the Public Works to see if you can accommodate a few more trees, I think that will make your property more appealing to your buyers, because ultimately you are competing with a lot of development happening up and down Stevens Creek. And I will say that this is an architecturally superior product to much of what we have seen so far, so that there is that. I will also encourage you to think about, 50 feet, you have a community that is immigrant rich, and a community that tends to bring in aging parents, aging in-laws, young kids, and you want to really think about, if not for this one, maybe your next project, whether 50 feet is really the kind of home that suits your buyer. You're building at 3,600 square feet down to about 2,300 square feet. When you're at 2,600 to 3,600 square feet, those are not starter homes typically. Those are homes that you're going to price up in the range. Those are homes that people live in for a long term. They lock in their tax basis. They stay at that tax basis. And so climbing up and down 50 feet is not trivial. And so I'd encourage you to really think about the persona you're building for. Is it the starter home persona? Is it the buyer that can afford a 3,600 home and wants to nest in that home for the long term? So those are some things to consider. In terms of retail, I would encourage you to work with the tenant. Maintaining goodwill always works well. So anything you can do to feed some lease termination fees into the tenant. I know we've got a commission that would like a broader motion that encourages the city to do things. But as you know, the city is running a deficit. And so I'd encourage you to, in good faith, see what you can do to help the tenant out, especially in turning some of these shells that we have sitting vacant into dollars that you can help them out with. And then finally, I will also add for your benefit, every project that's come here, there has been some negotiation, some give and take. We've had one developer that literally gave up a third floor, not asking you to do that, but literally gave up a third floor because the single family neighborhood came in here. And in the hearing, we did actually have that change. We had another developer work with staff ahead of time to change some of the tree layouts, change some of the setbacks on another property that overlooked single family homes. We do not have those circumstances here, but we do have retail. And so I'd encourage you, just in the spirit of community, to see how we can help the retail out. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commission? Do we have any other comments on the motion at hand before voting? Okay. If not, we will, City Clerk, will you please have the vote?
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. Then we will move on to old business, none. New business, we also have none. Do we have any staff and commission reports?
The only thing I can think of, and I'm probably blanking on some upcoming projects because I know they're out there, but as you know, we're dealing with the no net loss situation. We're planning to take a contract to get our housing element consultant PlaceWorks on board on April 7. So hoping one of the meetings in April that we may have a discussion here prior to the consultant being involved. I don't think they'll be able to make that meeting because they should have just gotten on board. But to maybe have a discussion on a very general sense to be looking at available or potential housing sites that we can start getting something so we get that discussion initiated ahead of our consultant coming. We obviously already have ideas, which we discussed at the March 3rd City Council meeting, but given that time is really of the essence on that, I think that would be a good forum to have for this commission. So I'm not sure if it would be first or second meeting, but I'd like to get it in April.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Assistant Director Connolly. It's good to have the heads up in advance so we can, start thinking about potential housing sites that we may want to bring forth. So thank you. Do we have any other commission reports? Commissioner Scharf? Oh, sorry, Vice Chair. Getting late.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, I just wanted to give a short report on the Planning Commissioner Academy that I attended in Anaheim. The chair and Commissioner Rao also attended. So I don't know how to say this so it doesn't sound wrong, but we're really fortunate in Cupertino to have a planning commission that really understands all these housing issues. In talking to some of the other commissioners from cities, that is not always the case. And I would say in nearly every session we went to, when it was time for questions, I was up there, the chair was up there, Santosh was up there, and we all had really good questions because we have the experience. We're one of the first cities that faced AB 130 projects. We also, as I mentioned, we're the poster child for SB 35 projects. And SB 35 has been modified multiple times, including one modification that was done just for one city, Cupertino. I would say some of the speaker things to take away. One speaker really urged cities to have legislative review committees because there are so many state laws on housing. There were, the last day, Cal Cities presented a list of the upcoming housing laws going through the legislature. There's 46 new housing laws going through. Some of them are trying to clean up older laws, some are new laws, some are harmless, some are very harmful. So it's very urgent that we stay on top of this. So I'm so glad our city council reestablished the Legislative Review Committee after previous city council unfortunately had gotten rid of it. Another speaker urged cities to keep their impact and in lieu fees up to date, continue to do nexus studies because most cities are falling behind on what those in lieu fees should actually be and the impact fees. The last day, the Cal Cities legislative advocate went through all those housing bills very fast, too fast in my opinion. That should have been a 2-hour session, not a 30-minute session. I do have a list of all 46 laws, but I'm not going to go through them right now. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. Commissioner Rao.
Thank you. I would echo what the Vice Chair said. I think it was really good to have the opportunity to get to know peer commissioners and staff from other cities. I think this is actually something that even locally, maybe there are opportunities for us to pursue in a low-cost way. Maybe there are future agenda items that allow us to do a study session with other planning departments that we might invite or they might invite. So we should explore low-cost ways of having local chapters. I think one point that I will add to the conversation is it's a tale of two cities. You had a number of small towns that had very little in common with the kinds of issues that we have. And then we had a number of these larger population cities, Walnut Creek, Dublin, San Ramon, Palo Alto, Sunnyvale. We could go down the list. And the equivalent in Southern California that really share the same set of challenges. And so to the extent that several of those are in this area, I would encourage staff and chair to look at future agenda setting as an opportunity to just invite some of those people in ways that don't cost us anything, and maybe they will reciprocate and we will get to attend theirs, because I think there's a lot to be learned in sharing how staff approach these projects, how commissioners approach these projects, and what are some creative ways we may use to really work within the bounds of the state laws, but still find ways to advance the community's needs. A couple of specific things that came out, I had questions about AB 130, and it was clear there was a lot of academic knowledge, but nobody had seen the project so far. I understand Mountain View has a project. I think it's Mountain View, or maybe it's Palo Alto, but that did not come up from the Mountain View commissioners who were there. So to the extent that we can, I think we should refine our AB 130 understanding and even advance that through sessions that staff may offer. I think given as the Vice Chair said, given the amount of knowledge the city has, I would like to see us put forth more speaking sessions at Cal Cities. Maybe staff can do speaking sessions, even if it's not the annual meeting. Maybe there's virtual meetings where staff can do speaking sessions, commissioners can do speaking sessions, maybe we can do joint speaking sessions. So I think clearly either our city is outspoken or thoughtful or both, but we're able to advance things that I think we did not see from the other commissioners. It was also striking to me how many of the commissioners in that room were actually in the profession directly, either as a developer, as an employee of a developer, as a public works civil engineer, as an architect. And so it was incredible to see how few of them were actually just members of the community at large that were able to offer thoughtful input without necessarily being in the profession themselves. It also begs the question of how do you separate the professional side of wanting to approve certain things versus the community side of it. So it certainly begs that question. That's all I have. I think it's a great opportunity to see how we can locally recreate some of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I also have a commission report on this topic, but I submitted it for the written communications, and so it will be covered in April. With that, do we have any future agenda setting items?
I do.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I don't know if this is legal, or if we did it, there would suddenly be another state law to prohibit it. But how about an impact fee that we add to help displace retail? Does our attorney have any opinion on there's any state law that would eliminate, that would prohibit such an impact fee?
I'm not aware of any as I sit here, Commissioner, but if you have a second, we certainly would add that to the future agenda.
Second.
Okay. And then the other one, we've been lucky in Cupertino so far that all these projects have included BMR units, whether inclusionary or non-inclusionary. But it is possible that in the future, a developer will say, hey, I want to pay an in lieu fee instead of including the BMR. So we really need to have a nexus study that would determine what that in lieu fee would be, because it costs a tremendous amount of money for the land and the construction costs for these BMR units. I mean, they could easily cost $1 million each to build. So I think we really need to start looking at figuring out what those in lieu fees should be. So that would be another agenda item. Maybe that's more of a council agenda item than a planning commission agenda item, or is it both? I don't know.
I thought that was on the city work program. Am I wrong? There's a nexus fee study.
There is a nexus fee study. I think it may be more broad, though, than what Commissioner Scharf is referring to, which is a real issue, in my view, if you start having people waive BMR fees. Our current fee is only designed to capture fractional units and would not possibly pay for the construction of BMR units.
I will second that.
And through the chair, I did have a suggested future agenda item, a couple of them. I'd like to suggest an agenda item for a study session on the fire evacuation study. I believe the consultant that wrote the report was not at the hearing. It would be good to have a detailed study session on the recommendations from that fire evacuation study and maybe suggestions that the commission may have for amendments to that fire evacuation study and see if that may even make its way to council. So I want to suggest that. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
And then just as a consideration for the chair and staff for future hearings that involve AB 130, it would be good to have fire not only present in the room, but also consider including in the written record any fire review for fire mitigation, since that is the basis for exempting the AB 130 waiver in certain fire hazard severity zones. I hope we can include that in future hearings that are coming up.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that, we'll adjourn the meeting.